The massive viewing screen on the bridge of the Star Voyager showed nothing but stars. Captain John Miller stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless field of tiny lights. After 20 years of space exploration, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Captain, we're picking up an unusual energy signature," said Lieutenant Susan Baker from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "It's unlike anything in our database." Miller walked over to her station. "Show me." The screen changed to display a series of energy readings. They pulsed in patterns that seemed almost alive. Before Miller could ask for more details, the ship's warning system began to sound. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, called out Officer Kevin Green. "They're big, sir. Really big." The viewing screen changed again. Miller's breath caught in his throat. 5 ships had appeared, each one at least 3 times the size of the Star Voyager. Their hulls were dark purple and shaped like arrowheads. Green lights pulsed along their sides in rhythmic patterns. "Are they charging weapons?" Miller asked. "Negative, sir," Baker replied. "But they're scanning us very thoroughly." Miller straightened his uniform. First contact. After all these years, humanity was about to meet its first alien civilization. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer, Jenny Adams, nodded. "Channel open, sir." Miller cleared his throat. "This is Captain John Miller of the Earth Defense Fleet ship Star Voyager. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact." For several long moments, there was only silence. Then the screen flickered, and Miller found himself looking at an alien face. The creature had gray-purple skin, large black eyes, and what appeared to be gill-like structures on its neck. When it spoke, the ship's translation system kicked in after a few seconds. "We are the Zarkanian Empire," the alien said. Its voice came through as deep and slightly mechanical. "Your presence has been noted. You will prepare for inspection." Miller frowned. "Inspection? I'm afraid I don't understand. We're here on a mission of peaceful exploration." The alien's gill structures fluttered. "All new species must be properly categorized and assessed. This is standard procedure. You will comply." Baker looked up from her station. "Sir, they're powering up some kind of energy beam." "Shields up," Miller ordered. "But keep weapons powered down. We don't want to appear hostile." He turned back to the screen. "Perhaps we could discuss this first. We represent a sovereign nation and—" "Irrelevant," the alien cut him off. "Your technological level has been preliminarily assessed as Category 3. You will submit to full inspection or face immediate consequences." The energy readings on Baker's screen spiked. "They're trying to penetrate our shields with some kind of scanning beam, sir." Miller's jaw tightened. "Can they break through?" "Not yet, but our shield strength is dropping. Whatever they're using, it's powerful." Miller stepped forward. "Zarkanian vessel, please cease your scan. Our shields are a necessary protection for our crew. We're happy to share information, but we must insist on maintaining our defensive systems." The alien's expression didn't change. "Resistance to inspection is noted. Your species shows concerning signs of independence. This will be factored into your final categorization." "Sir," Baker called out urgently, "I'm picking up transmissions between their ships. They're discussing mining rights, something about resource extraction potential." Miller's blood ran cold. He'd heard enough stories about first contact gone wrong. "End transmission," he ordered. The alien's face disappeared from the screen. Status of their scanning beam: "Still trying to break through. Shields at 60%. Miller took a deep breath. "Launch probe 4. Let's see what we can learn about them." The small probe shot out from the Star Voyager's bow. Almost immediately, one of the alien ships destroyed it with a blast of green energy. "Destruction of monitoring devices is not permitted," the alien's voice came through again. "This violation has been recorded." Baker's console began beeping rapidly. "Sir, I managed to intercept some of their internal communications before they destroyed the probe. They're not just talking about mining rights. They're discussing population control measures, forced labor camps. Sir, they're treating us like a resource to be harvested. Miller's face hardened. Send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Priority 1. Include all sensor data and communications logs. He turned to the weapons officer. Power up defensive systems only. If they fire first. Receiving new transmission from the lead ship. Adams announced. The alien appeared on screen again. Your preliminary assessment is complete. The Zarkanian Empire claims this sector and all resources within it, including developing species. You will provide coordinates to your primary civilization center for proper processing. I'm afraid we can't do that, Miller replied firmly. Earth and its colonies are sovereign territory. We're happy to establish diplomatic relations as equals, but we will not submit to any claims on our people or our territory. The aliens' gill structures pulsed rapidly. Your response indicates dangerous levels of resistance. Security protocols now in effect. You will be subdued and processed. Green energy beams lanced out from all 5 alien ships. Evasive maneuvers. Miller ordered. Baker, get that data to Earth Command. Adams, send out a warning to all Earth ships in the sector. Everyone else. Battle stations. The Star Voyager dove and rolled, barely avoiding the deadly beams. Their shields flickered under Nereids. Data sent. Baker confirmed. Sir, 3 more Earth ships are in range. The Montana, the Star Chaser, and the Valley Forge. Tell them to stay back, but record everything. Miller ordered. The Council needs to see this. He turned to his tactical officer. Target their weapons only. Let's show them we can fight back without destroying their ships. The Star Voyager's laser batteries opened up, striking the lead Zarkanian ship's weapon ports with surgical precision. The alien vessel's green energy beams sputtered and died. Direct hits on their weapon systems, the tactical officer reported. Minimal damage to their hull. The alien commander appeared on screen again. Its expression showed something that might have been surprise. Your resistance is noted. Your species will be categorized as requiring military pacification before processing. Prepare for. A blast rocked the alien ship, cutting off the transmission. Through the viewing screen, Miller saw the Montana had arrived and opened fire. Sir, Baker called out. The Zarkanians are powering up their faster-than-light drives. They're retreating. Miller watched as the alien ships disappeared into streams of light. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Send everything we have to Earth Command, he finally said. And get me Admiral Carter. The Council needs to know. This isn't a diplomatic incident. This isn't a cultural misunderstanding. He looked at the spot where the alien ships had been. This is a threat to our very existence. Baker looked up from her station, her face pale. Sir, I'm still decoding their transmissions. They've already started mining operations on 3 uninhabited systems near Earth space. They're talking about processing centers. About using human populations as labor forces. She swallowed hard. They don't see us as people, sir. To them, we're just another resource to be exploited. Miller nodded grimly. Then we'll have to show them just how wrong they are. He turned to Adams. Get me Earth Command. It's time humanity showed the galaxy that we're not just another resource. We're not just another species to be conquered and enslaved. He straightened his uniform. It's time to show them that humans fight back. As the Star Voyager turned toward Earth, its engines glowing bright against the darkness of space, Miller knew that everything had changed. Humanity had dreamed of first contact, of joining a larger galactic community. Instead, they had found an empire of conquerors who saw them as nothing more than cattle to be herded. The war that was coming would change not just humanity, but the very nature of space combat itself. And John Miller had just fired the first shot. Commander Peter Collins stood at the observation deck of New Haven Colony, watching the stars through the reinforced glass dome. The colony's lights reflected off his worn uniform as he studied a data pad showing evacuation plans. 3 weeks had passed since the Star Voyager's encounter with the Zarkanians, and every human settlement was preparing for the worst. "Commander," a voice called from behind him, "the first transport ships are ready." He turned to face Amy Martinez, the colony's chief engineer. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little she had slept in the past week. "How many can we move in the first wave?" he asked. "Maybe 4,000, she replied, "if we pack them in tight. But that still leaves 8,000 colonists waiting for the second run." Collins nodded grimly. "And how long until the transport ships can return?" "At least 3 days, assuming nothing goes wrong." Martinez handed him another datapad. "But that's not why I came to find you. Look at this." The pad showed sensor readings from the colony's outer defense network. Red dots appeared at the edge of the screen, moving steadily closer. "How many ships?" Collins asked, his throat tightening. "At least 15 Zarkanian vessels," Martinez said. "Bigger than the ones that attacked the Star Voyager. They'll be here in 6 hours." Collins slammed his fist against the railing. "We needed 3 more days. The Council promised us 3 more days." He grabbed his communicator. "This is Commander Collins. Begin immediate evacuation procedures. Priority 1. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Alarms began blaring throughout the colony. Through the dome, Collins could see people running towards the spaceport, carrying whatever they could. "Get to the engineering bay," he told Martinez. "Download everything you can about their shield frequencies. If we're going down, we're taking as much data as we can with us." Martinez nodded and ran off. Collins turned to the emergency command center, where operators were already coordinating the evacuation. "Status of the transport ships," he demanded. "First wave loaded at 30%, sir," replied Officer Sarah Wilson. "But we're having trouble with the Port 3 airlocks. Too many people trying to get through at once. Send security teams to maintain order," Collins ordered. "And get me Earth Command." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Mary Thompson's concerned face. "Report, Commander. They're here early, Admiral. 15 ships, maybe more. We need reinforcements now." Thompson's expression darkened. "The closest battle group is 12 hours away. We didn't expect them to move so fast." "Then we'll hold them off as long as we can," Collins said. "But you need to understand what's happening out here. They're not just attacking military targets. They're going after civilians." A new alarm started blaring. Wilson's face went pale. "Sir, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're launching fighters." Collins watched in horror as dozens of small, dart-like ships appeared on the tactical display. "How long until the first transport is ready for launch?" 20 minutes. "We don't have 20 minutes, Collins growled. He turned back to the screen. "Admiral, you're seeing this." Thompson nodded grimly. "Holding them off isn't enough anymore. We need to show them we can hurt them back." She pressed something off-screen. "Commander Collins, you are hereby authorized to use the prototype weapons. Authorization code, Thompson Alpha 79. Collins's eyes widened. The prototype weapons were barely tested, developed from salvaged Zarkanian technology after the Star Voyager incident. "Understood, Admiral." He turned to his weapons officer. "Arm the gravity pulse cannons. Target their fighter screens." The colony's defense platforms hummed to life. The new weapons looked crude compared to the sleek Zarkanian ships, but looks didn't matter now. "Fighters in range in 30 seconds, Wilson reported. "Wait for it," Collins ordered. "Let them get closer. Make every shot count." The Zarkanian fighters swooped in, green energy weapons charging. They moved in perfect formation, clearly expecting minimal resistance from what they saw as an inferior species. "Now," Collins shouted. The gravity pulse cannons fired. Instead of traditional energy beams, they released waves of distorted spacetime. The first wave of fighters suddenly found themselves pulled in a dozen different directions at once. Their formation broke apart as ships collided with each other. Their own momentum turned against them. Direct hits, Wilson called out. Enemy fighter screen disrupted. But the victory was short-lived. The larger Zarkanian ships opened fire, their massive weapons targeting the colony's main dome. Shields at 60%. Someone yelled, "We can't take many more hits like that." Collins grabbed the command center's microphone. "All civilians, proceed to emergency shelters immediately. Transport crews, prepare for emergency launch procedures." The colony shook as another blast hit the shields. Through the dome, Collins could see the first transport ship lifting off, its engines glowing bright against the darkness. "Get those people out of here," he ordered. "Everything else is expendable." Martinez's voice came through his communicator. "Commander, I got something. They're shield frequencies. They're not as advanced as we thought. They're just brute forcing everything with power. If we could reconfigure our weapons." Another blast rocked the colony. "We don't have time to reconfigure anything," Collins replied. "Just get that data to Earth Command. Transport 1 is away," Wilson reported. "Transport 2 at 80% capacity." Collins watched as the first transport ship accelerated away from the colony, carrying thousands of civilians to safety. But his relief turned to horror as one of the Zarkanian ships turned its weapons toward the fleeing transport. "No," he whispered. Green energy lanced out. The transport's shields held for a moment, then failed. The ship exploded in a silent flash, taking 4,000 innocent lives with it. The command center fell silent. Collins stared at the tactical display, at the dots representing thousands more civilians still waiting to evacuate, and at the Zarkanian ships that saw them as nothing more than resources to be harvested or eliminated. "Get me Earth Command," he said, his voice cold with fury. Tell them the Zarkanians just crossed a line they can't uncross." The colony's remaining weapons opened up, targeting the Zarkanian ships with everything they had. They managed to damage 2 of the alien vessels before the shields finally failed. As the evacuation alarms continued to blare, Collins sent one final message to Earth. "They're not just trying to conquer us," he transmitted. "They're trying to exterminate us, and we need to respond in kind." The message sent just as the command center's roof began to crack. Collins looked up at the approaching Zarkanian ships, their green weapons charging for another volley. "Well," he muttered, "at least now we know what we're dealing with." He turned to his remaining crew. "Anyone who can get to the emergency shuttles, go now. The rest of us, let's show these aliens that humans don't die easily." The battle for New Haven Colony would last another 6 hours. By the time it was over, the Zarkanians would learn an important lesson. Humans might be technologically behind, but they would fight for every inch of ground, every life, every chance for survival. And in the halls of Earth's government, the deaths of 4,000 civilians would become the spark that ignited humanity's full military response. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Mary Thompson walked through the underground war room beneath Earth's capital city. Holograms flickered all around her, showing battle plans and ship movements. 1 month had passed since the attack on New Haven Colony, and Earth was finally ready to strike back. "Show me the new defense systems," she ordered. Amy Martinez, now promoted to Chief of Engineering for the Earth Defense Initiative, stepped forward. She had survived New Haven and spent every waking moment since then working on new weapons. "We call this the Trinity System," Martine said, bringing up a new hologram. 3 technologies that will change everything about space combat." The first image showed a complex shield pattern. First, adaptive shield frequencies. The Zarkanians rely on raw power, but we found a way to make our shields learn and adapt. Every time they hit us, our shields get stronger against that specific weapon. Thompson nodded. "And it works. We tested it against captured Zarkanian weapons. Their ships will need 10 times more power to break through." The second image appeared, showing tiny, dart-like objects. Next, point defense swarm drones. Thousands of small automated fighters that protect our ships. They're too small for Zarkanian weapons to target effectively, but they can tear apart enemy fighters and missiles. The third image showed a complex device. Finally, the gravity well projector. We reversed their own technology and made it better. We can create areas where faster-than-light travel is impossible. No more surprise attacks. Thompson studied the holograms. How soon can we deploy these? The first fleet is already being upgraded, Martins replied. We're calling it the Lightning Fleet. A new officer entered the room. Admiral, we're detecting Zarkanian ships approaching the Alpha Centauri colony. Thompson straightened her uniform. How many? 20 ships, ma'am. Bigger than anything we've seen before. Thompson smiled for the first time in weeks. Perfect. Deploy the Lightning Fleet. Let's show them our new tricks. In space above Alpha Centauri, 6 human ships waited. They looked small compared to the massive Zarkanian vessels that appeared out of faster-than-light travel. Captain Steve Rogers commanded the lead ship, Star Defender. All ships, activate Trinity systems. Let them make the first move. The Zarkanian ships moved forward in their usual arrow formation. Green energy beams lanced out, striking the human ships. But something was different this time. Shields holding at 95%, reported Lieutenant Paul Adams. Adaptive frequencies are learning their weapon patterns. Rogers watched as the Zarkanian ships fired again. This time, the shields barely flickered. Launch swarm drones, he ordered. Thousands of small silver objects poured out from the human ships. They moved like a cloud of angry insects, surrounding the massive alien vessels. The Zarkanians launched their fighters in response. But the human drones were too small, too quick. For every drone they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The alien fighters began falling from the sky. Sir, Adams called out. They're trying to retreat. Activate gravity well projectors, Rogers commanded. The space around the Zarkanian fleet distorted. Their faster-than-light drives powered up but failed to engage. They're trapped, Rogers said. All ships, open fire. Show them what happens when they underestimate humanity. The human ships attacked together. Their weapons had been redesigned based on everything they had learned about Zarkanian technology. Each shot struck with surgical precision, targeting engines, weapons, and shield generators. On the Zarkanian command ship, the alien admiral watched in disbelief as his fleet fell apart around him. These were not the same primitive humans they had encountered before. How? He demanded over the communication channel. Your species was barely capable of space travel. Rogers appeared on the alien screen. You made 3 mistakes, he said calmly. First, you thought technology was everything. Second, you thought we would break easily. His eyes hardened. But your biggest mistake was killing innocent civilians. We might have forgiven the first 2 errors, but not that one. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 15 Zarkanian ships had been disabled. 5 more had been destroyed when they refused to surrender. Back in the war room, Admiral Thompson watched the battle recordings. Send these to every human colony and ship, she ordered. The Zarkanians need to understand. Everything has changed. Martinez stepped forward. There's more, Admiral. We captured intact computers from their ships. The Zarkanians, they'd done this before. Many times, there are other species out there, enslaved, being used as resources. Thompson's expression darkened. Then we'll free them too. Prepare a message for broadcast on all frequencies. Tell every enslaved species that help is coming. She turned to her staff. The Zarkanians wanted to harvest us like resources. Instead, they've awakened something they don't understand. She walked to the main hologram display, showing the disabled Zarkanian ships. They thought we would be easy to conquer because we were behind them technologically. They didn't realize that humans have something they don't: creativity, adaptability, and most importantly, a reason to fight that's stronger than simple conquest. A message came in from the front lines. More Zarkanian fleets were gathering, larger than before. They were preparing a massive counterattack. "Let them come," Thompson said. "Every battle teaches us more. Every fight makes us stronger." She looked at the casualty reports from New Haven Colony. "And we will never forget why we're fighting." In space above Alpha Centauri, Captain Rogers watched as human rescue ships approached the disabled Zarkanian vessels. They would take prisoners, gather intelligence, and learn everything they could. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them the Trinity system works better than we hoped. And tell them—" He paused, looking at an image of New Haven Colony's destruction. "Tell them we're just getting started." The battle for Alpha Centauri marked a turning point in the war. The Zarkanians had expected to find another primitive species to conquer. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, one that learned from every defeat and grew stronger from every battle. And as news of the victory spread across human space, a new message began to circulate among the stars. Humanity was no longer prey. They were hunters now, and the galaxy would never be the same. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Wright crouched behind a fallen pillar in the Masset space station. Alarms blared all around him as his strike team moved through the Zarkanian base. Operation Thunderbolt was underway, and everything depended on their success. "Status report," he whispered into his helmet comm. "Charges set in Section 3, replied Kate Brown, his demolitions expert, ready to blow their shield generators. "Engineering team in position," added Alan Cooper. "We can access their main computer core as soon as you give the word." Wright checked his tactical display. The station's layout glowed in blue light inside his helmet. They had fought their way through 3 levels of security to reach this point. Now came the hard part. "Begin final phase," he ordered. "Remember, we need those computers intact." The team split up, moving with practiced skill through the alien corridors. 6 months of fighting the Zarkanians had taught them a lot. The aliens were strong, but they were predictable. They never expected anyone to fight back in new ways. Wright's helmet sensors picked up movement ahead. 3 guards approaching. Standard formation. The Zarkanian guards moved in their usual triangle pattern, energy weapons ready. They never looked up. "Now," Wright commanded. From the ceiling panels, 3 human soldiers dropped silently. They used new weapons developed from captured Zarkanian technology, neural stunners that temporarily shut down the aliens' nervous systems. The guards fell without a sound. "Clear," reported Sergeant Lisa Price. "But they'll notice these guys are missing soon." Wright nodded. "Then let's move faster. Cooper, start the hack." The engineering team rushed to a computer terminal. Cooper plugged in a device that Martinez had designed. It bypassed Zarkanian security by thinking like them. Direct and overwhelming force. "Sir," Brown called out. "You need to see this." Wright ran to her position. She had found a holding area, but not for supplies or weapons. Behind force fields stood dozens of aliens, species he had never seen before. They watched the humans with a mixture of fear and hope. "Prisoners?" Wright asked. "Slaves," Brown corrected, checking her scanner. "According to these readings, some of them have been here for years. The Zarkanians used them for manual labor." Wright's jaw tightened. "Cooper, how long until you crack their systems?" 5 minutes, maybe less. "Make it 2. We're adding a rescue operation to our mission." Suddenly, alarms changed tone. A deep voice echoed through the station in the Zarkanian language. "They found the unconscious guards," Price reported. "Security teams heading our way." Wright made a quick decision. "Brown, set those charges now. Price, protect Cooper until he finishes the hack. Everyone else, prepare for company." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. Wright activated his combat systems. The new armor they wore was reverse-engineered from Zarkanian technology, but better. It learned from every hit, just like their ship shields. "Charges ready," Brown called. "Download at 80%, Cooper added. The first wave of Zarkanian security forces rounded the corner. They fired their green energy weapons, but the humans were ready. Wright's team scattered, using moves that no Zarkanian would expect. They rolled, jumped, and fired from positions that the aliens considered illogical. "They're trying to flank us," Price warned. "Let them," Wright replied. Brown, blow Section 3 charges. An explosion rocked the station. The shield generators went down, and with them, the force fields holding the prisoners. "Download complete," Cooper shouted over the chaos. Wright activated his command channel. "Lightning Fleet, this is Strike Team Alpha. Shield generators down. Computer core captured. Begin Phase 2. Through the station's windows, space lit up with weapons fire. The human fleet dropped out of stealth mode, their ships appearing all around the station. Swarm drones filled the sky like angry stars. "All strike team members, fall back to extraction points," Wright ordered. He turned to the freed prisoners. "Anyone who wants to leave with us, come now." The aliens didn't need to be told twice. They rushed forward, following the humans through corridors they had cleaned as slaves just hours before. "Sir," Cooper called out, "the data we stole, it's bigger than we thought. These aren't just battle plans. This is their entire military database, locations of all their bases, fleet movements, everything." Wright smiled behind his helmet. "Send it to the fleet. Today, we're not just freeing one station. We're giving Earth everything they need to free the galaxy." The escape was chaos. Zarkanian forces tried to stop them, but they weren't prepared for human combat tactics. The strike team moved like water, flowing around obstacles, helping the freed slaves keep up. As they reached the extraction ships, Wright looked back at the station. More explosions bloomed as the Lightning Fleet targeted key systems. The Zarkanians had built this place to process and control their slaves. Now it was becoming a symbol of liberation. "Last group aboard," Price reported. "All ships, launch." Wright ordered. "Lightning Fleet, cover our retreat." The extraction ships blasted away from the dying station. Behind them, the Lightning Fleet's new weapons tore through Zarkanian defenses like paper. In his command chair, Wright looked at the freed aliens. They came in all shapes and sizes, but they all shared the same look. People who had just discovered hope. "Send word to Earth Command," he said. "Tell them Operation Thunderbolt was a complete success. And tell them," he watched as a former slave helped bandage a wounded human soldier, "tell them we're not alone in this fight anymore." The battle for the station changed everything. The stolen data revealed the full extent of Zarkanian operations and their weaknesses. But more importantly, it showed the galaxy that someone was finally fighting back. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying their liberated passengers to freedom, Wright thought about how far they had come. The Zarkanians had thought humans would be easy prey. Instead, they had become the spark that would ignite a galaxy-wide revolution. "Sir," Cooper said, examining the stolen data, "some of these freed slaves, their species have been fighting the Zarkanians in secret for years. They have their own weapons, their own tactics. They just needed someone to help them coordinate." Wright nodded. "Then let's give them that coordination. Earth won't just leave a human resistance anymore." He looked at their new allies. "We're going to lead a galactic one." The ships streaked through space, carrying with them not just freed slaves, but the beginning of something new. The Zarkanians had created an empire through fear and domination. Now they would learn what happened when their victims learned to work together. The war was about to enter its final phase. Admiral John Miller stood on the bridge of the Star Voyager, but the ship was very different from the one that had first encountered the Zarkanians a year ago. New weapons bristled along its hull. Swarm drone launchers waited, ready to release their deadly cargo. The Trinity system hummed with power. But the biggest change was the fleet around him. Ships of dozen different alien designs flew alongside human vessels. Each brought their own weapons, their own tactics, their own reasons to fight. The Liberation Alliance, they called themselves. All ships report ready, said Susan Baker, now his first officer. The Centaurians have their stealth ships in position. The Regelian heavy cruisers are standing by. Miller nodded. And our new friends. The freed slaves from Operation Thunderbolt. Many of them volunteered to serve on Alliance ships. They know Zarkanian protocols better than anyone. The tactical display showed their target. The Zarkanian home system. After a year of battles, after gathering allies and perfecting their weapons, they were ready to end this war. Message from Earth Command, Baker reported. Admiral Thompson says, "Give them hell." Miller smiled. Signal all ships. Begin Operation Daybreak. The battle began with silence. Centaurian stealth ships slipped through the Zarkanian defense grid, their crews using skills honed by centuries of resistance. They planted gravity well projectors at key points, just like humans had taught them. Projectors in position, Baker reported. No faster than light escape for them this time. Signal the Regelians, Miller ordered. Start Phase 2. Massive Regelian warships appeared from behind the system's outer planets. Their weapons were primitive by Zarkanian standards, but they had something the Zarkanians never expected: human targeting computers. The Zarkanian defense fleet rushed to meet the threat. They moved in their usual perfect formations, confident in their superior technology. They're launching fighters, Baker said. Deploy swarm drones. All ships, begin attack pattern Delta. The space around the Zarkanian homeworld erupted in light. Human ships darted between their larger allies, their Trinity systems protecting entire battle groups. Swarm drones clashed with Zarkanian fighters in a dance of light and destruction. But this wasn't just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of ideas. Where the Zarkanians moved in rigid formations, the Alliance forces flowed like water. When the aliens concentrated their fire, their targets scattered in ways that made no sense to their tactical computers. Every species brought its own way of fighting, creating chaos that no single approach could counter. "Sir," Baker called out, "their orbital defenses are targeting our heavy ships." "Just as planned," Miller replied. "Signal the Arcturians." Small ships piloted by insectoid aliens appeared from nowhere. The Arcturians had been maintenance workers in Zarkanian bases, seen but never respected. Now they showed why that was a mistake. Their ships attached to the orbital platforms like mechanical parasites, shutting down systems from the inside. Their defenses are falling, Baker reported, but their main fleet is still intact. Miller watched the tactical display. The Zarkanians were finally adapting, trying to copy Alliance tactics. But it was too late. They had spent too many centuries believing they were superior, never imagining that their slaves and their victims would unite against them. "Launch the final attack," he ordered. "All ships, all species together." The Alliance fleet moved as one. Humans provided shields while Regelians brought power. Centaurian stealth ships guided Arcturian saboteurs. Former slaves used their knowledge to target weak points. On the Zarkanian command ship, the High Admiral watched in disbelief as his perfect military machine fell apart. These tactics made no sense. These alliances should not work. Different species could not coordinate this well. But they did. "Sir," Baker said, "we're receiving a transmission from their command ship." "Put it through." The Zarkanian High Admiral appeared on screen. His gill structures were pale with stress. "This is impossible," he said. "You were primitives. Resources to be harvested." "That was your first mistake," Miller replied. "You saw our technology and thought you knew what we were capable of. You never considered that there might be strength in something besides weapons. What do you want?" "Unconditional surrender. The release of all enslaved species, and a complete reorganization of your society under Alliance supervision." The Zarkanian's eyes narrowed. "Or," Miller's voice hardened, "or we show you what happens when everyone you've ever hurt works together to bring you down. Your choice." For a long moment, the alien was silent. Around his ship, the combined fleet of former victims and slaves waited, their weapons ready. "We," The High Admiral's guild structures trembled. We surrender. The war ended not with a massive battle, but with a simple transmission. Throughout the Zarkanian Empire, slaves looked up as their masters stood down. Prison camps opened. Mining operations stopped. On the bridge of the Star Voyager, Miller sent the victory signal to Earth. But his work wasn't done. "Signal all Alliance ships," he ordered. "Begin Operation Liberation. There are still slaves to free, wounds to heal." Baker smiled. "It's going to change everything, isn't it? The whole galaxy will be different after this." Miller looked at his tactical display, at the ships of former enemies now flying together. That was always the plan. The Zarkanians thought they would harvest us like resources. Instead, we showed them something they never understood. "What's that, sir?" "That real strength doesn't come from having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It comes from working together, from turning enemies into allies, from fighting for something bigger than yourself." As the Alliance fleet moved through the Zarkanian system, beginning the long process of dismantling an empire, Miller thought about that first contact a year ago. The Zarkanians had wanted to change human civilization. They had succeeded, but not in the way they planned. They had forced humanity to adapt, to innovate, to reach out to others. In trying to enslave the human race, they had instead helped create something new. A galaxy where different species worked together, where technology served cooperation instead of conquest. Space combat would never be the same, but more importantly, the galaxy would never be the same either. And that was exactly what humanity had been fighting for all along.